Everyone, I hope you're doing really well. It's the 12th of March 2025. I'm Gary Waterman, former UK Police Constable, and since 2022 I've acquired irrefutable, verifiable and corroborative evidence of decades-long international government fraud where our governments have been forging company incorporation systems and the incorporation documents to create criminal entity companies that are now running the world and actually committing most of the crime against humanity. And because it's linked to the taxation system, it means there's a complete motivation to ensure that those problems continue, or at least the illusion of those problems, using their criminal mainstream media so they can actually justify more money from us to defraud us and hope that people can trust in them when actually they are the biggest criminal organisation of all. And unfortunately, the evidence is now irrefutable that this includes government organisations that are supposedly set up to protect humanity and children when in fact they've actually been preying on humanity and children through the system of fraud and crime. So we're going to look at Action Fraud and the National Fraud Intelligence Bureau. Now, I first contacted Action Fraud in 2022 after I'd been making inquiries within the company that I was removed from, called Exmoor Manor Freehold Limited. I was a director at that time, and I was starting to establish huge fraud through that company, which led to the largest problem this planet is now facing, which is this fraud and the crimes that it is enabling it to facilitate. But more recently, I've looked at Action Fraud in a bit more depth, and that's because I received this letter from one of my contacts, and it was a letter from Action Fraud to them, dated the 26th of February this year, so very recently. And it was after they had contacted Action Fraud about various things going on at the moment. So that's Action Fraud suggesting that they're still operating and that they're responding to victims of crime. Now, I've received no response from my last reports, months and months and months ago. I don't think I've ever had a letter like this, but I certainly have had no reports or responses from the last several reports I've made to most police forces, etc. So because they know that it's over what they've been part of and they're fully exposed. So let's look at Action Fraud, and when you search it on Wikipedia, it redirects you to the National Fraud Intelligence Bureau. Please verify and corroborate the information I'm going to show you. So here's the National Fraud Intelligence Bureau research on Wikipedia. It says the National Fraud Intelligence Bureau is a police unit in the United Kingdom responsible for gathering and analysing intelligence relating to fraud and financially motivated cybercrime. The NFIB was created as part of the recommendations of the 2006 National Fraud Review, which also saw the formation of the National Fraud Authority. The NFIB was developed and is overseen by the City of London Police as part of the role as a national lead for economic crime investigation and is funded by the Home Office. Action Fraud is part of that, and this is what it says. It says about 90 investigators who are not police officers work at the NFIB in the City of London. Action Fraud, sometimes stylised Action Fraud with no space, is the UK's national reporting service for fraud and financially motivated cybercrime. So it's the first point of call. Everyone is directed, any crime, report it to the Action Fraud. It was transferred to the City of London Police after the National Fraud Authority was closed in March 2014. Action Fraud has a website and call centre which provides information about different types of fraud and other prevention advice. Individuals and businesses can report fraud, such as forwarding scam emails for inspection, to Action Fraud on their website or by telephone. Not going to read all of that. According to the Action Fraud, reports taken are passed to the National Fraud Intelligence Bureau. Action Fraud does not investigate the cases and cannot advise you on the progress of a case. There were around 85 call handling staff working on the Action Fraud helpline in November 2014, which fell to 70 by December 2015. Action Fraud staff are employed by contractor Concentrix. Okay, we're going to look at that in a minute. Numbers increased to about 80 staff in 2018. A review in July 2021 led to an announcement in July 2023 that the service would be replaced by one to be provided by Capita and PwC, which we're going to look at later. Both of those are already linked significantly to the international fraud as criminal organisations. The changeover was meant to complete by 2024, but as of February 2025 this year had not yet happened. Okay, so remember, we've got Concentrix back in who the staff were actually being employed by, and not until this year it was going to be changed to Capita and PwC. So let's have a look at Concentrix on Companies House. So on the left here, I've literally just typed Concentrix, Companies House, and it's brought up this company. And it dissolved as I'm reporting the fraud or making inquiries within the company, that I was part of as a director in 2022. Now, this is massively significant because obviously they're saying that another organisation was actually going to take over, but they still haven't. So that suggests it's now completely unregulated and fraudulently operating, because we've got a letter dated February, but this company dissolved, which is where the staff employed, and there's no other mention. Okay, so it suggests that it is panicked, dissolved, and now they're a rogue organisation. And of course, they're all ignoring the evidence, so they are biding their time for something sinister against humanity. That is what I believe is the case. So on the left-hand side there, you can see that David Colson Stonehouse, you can see Concentrix at the top there. This is on the people records. You can go and verify it. Click people on the company. On the right-hand side, you've got a little tab there. I think it's person of control, company of control, people of control. Click on that and you'll see that Mr. David Colson Stonehouse is listed there. So we're going to have a look at him in a minute. On the incorporation document for Concentrix is a company called Quick Access Formations PLC. Now that is already linked to the fraud. That's already part of the international fraud. So I immediately realise that it's connected to fraud itself. Okay, the organisation that is supposedly stopping fraud. So here, again, just to confirm, within Concentrix, we have David Colson Stonehouse. So when we search him in this middle screenshot now, so all I've done is I'm in Companies House, search David Colson Stonehouse, and it comes up with one entry here. You click on that, and it comes up with this. Okay, so he's got 35 companies that he was either linked to or still is. And you can see he's born in 1955, and you've got Safe Date Limited. Interesting company already. Now, I haven't got into that too much, Safe Date, though. But those of you who follow my evidence will know that football clubs are a massive part of this international government fraud. Pretty much everyone I've looked at is fraudulent. And, of course, they're the perfect organisation to launder criminal money through. And you have a lot of world high-profile individuals that are involved in football clubs, owning them, etc. And of course, it's worth a lot of money. So here we have Newcastle United Football Club linked to that director, David, okay? And I've seen this, it's already been featured in the fraud, and it's a criminal entity company because there's no other name registered. And on the incorporation document, you have Newcastle East End Football Company with the same date that's on the register. So they forged the register and put a company name of this instead. Newcastle United Football Company Limited. Okay, you can see it's different. Okay? Criminal organisation. And they would have known exactly what they were doing. This is our government, remember, that are forging the registers. There's also another football club, Sunderland Association Football Club Limited, in brackets there. And that was started in 1896, so it's a very old company. And it appears as though they have forged the incorporation document. So it looks as though they've panicked. You can just see it here. Football club did have company. They've put a line through it and changed it to limited so it matches the register. But so they're forging the document, it appears. Very likely that that's happened after I've been exposing this. And they're going into the records and panicking. And at the bottom, you can see Waterlow and Sons Limited. Now, that's a very important company. Waterlow and Sons links to the currency producer, okay, as well, which is now De La Rue since 1961, I think. On the left, the same director, David, is linked to Northeast Pharmacies. All right, now pharmaceuticals are a huge part of this. We know what's happened over the last few years. Okay, it's all part of this, everybody, and I suspect it's very sinister. Now, this pharmaceutical company is criminal. It's fraudulent. As Swift Incorporations Limited on its incorporation document. And remember, you can verify this. Right, you just need to go into the company's records, go into filing history, look at the incorporation document. Sometimes they're in another selection of documents. Now, Jordan & Sons is a criminal organisation that was set up the year before the Satanic Church was actually incorporated, okay, in 1966. Again, links to football, doesn't it, 1966? Now, the Satanic Church actually links to Germany as well. And in 1966, of course, was the England-Germany World Cup. So here's Jordan & Sons Limited, a fraudulent criminal entity, and that illegality continues through. So we now have a fraudulent criminal pharmaceutical company. So that means anything that company has done in relation to any pharmaceuticals is criminal and unlawful. Remember, we're looking at a satanic evil system that is in place with complete inversion, complete deception against humanity. Further down on the incorporation document, I found this quite interesting. So one of the directors on the incorporation document is from Bishop Auckland in Durham. Okay. Now, if you're not aware of the Iona Prophecy document that I've done, that links in to Bishop Auckland and the Archbishop of Canterbury. So we now have a link to the Archbishop of Canterbury. And interestingly, you have Quality Care Homes PLC. Now, I don't need to spell this out, what this means. If we have criminal, fraudulent pharmaceutical companies linked to care homes producing, pharmaceuticals and giving them potentially to old people, now there's no accountability and liability because they're criminal organisations. So I'll let you work out what that means. So, same director links to BizBob, David. And within BizBob, you've got Paul Blackwell on the left, and he links to Ursus Medical Limited. And within Ursus, we're going to look at Ursus Medical here. It dissolved in 2023. Okay, it was incorporated in 2015. So they've realised what's going on with the exposure, and they've dissolved it, as many of them are, because they realised the game is up. Now, the director on the right here, John Hurst, within there, he's a reverend. Oh, no, he's not. Sorry, I thought it says Reverend John Raymond Hurst. Sorry, my eyes definitely getting worse. All the radiation from the phones. Keep looking at my phone. Okay, so here's John Raymond Hurst. We've just gone into his record. Now, this is where it gets very important. Bearing in mind, we're talking about child trafficking. Here we have Derwent Films LLP. Now, that's already featured in the fraud. I haven't actually gone into it a lot, but I have gone into the companies that we're going to look at from there. So within Derwent, you can see at the top there, it has Derwent. You have Fleet Film Partners Limited and Fleet Film Partners 2. They are criminal organisations, okay, when you research them. But we're not going to go into that too much because I've already done it on another document. But on the right, within Derwent, we have David Allen. David Allen links to what I suspect is a reference to the Paedophile Information Exchange. Okay, so we've got Brand PIE Limited within there. Now, when you research Rishi Sunak, there's other PIE companies. And if you're not aware, the National Council for Civil Liberties was affiliated to the Paedophile Information Exchange. If you go and look at Harriet Harman interview regarding child trafficking or something similar, you type that in, you'll see on YouTube an interview that she was forced to do. So they were affiliated to the Paedophile Information Exchange. And the National Council for Civil Liberties are linked to the international government fraud. They're also linked by the research to the World Trade Center disaster, which I think was a huge satanic sacrifice over all of this, linking into child trafficking and all sorts to get to the point we are now. Same director is linked to the Juice Doctor Limited. Now, those of you who don't know, juice is often a reference to adrenochrome, which is the blood taken from tortured children. So bearing in mind, we have come in from Action Fraud and we are very, very close to it. And now we have international fraud and we have what appears to be references to very sinister activities against children. Now, this is supported by overwhelming evidence where I've researched specific cases of mass child murder, it appears, on the Isle of Jersey, also the Hampstead Child Abuse Inquiry, and the research from the lead investigating officers, the politicians, Ricky Dearman, all go back into the same criminal fraudulent entity companies. So it all links together incredibly quickly to the fraud. There's no coincidence. There's over 5 million companies and they all overlap incredibly quickly. And one of the companies that features all the way through is Ingenious, that we're going to come to in a minute, which is a Hollywood company. On the incorporation document for this, we have, that's just to show the original name, and you can see it's a fraudulent entity company. This is the second most important company because this company, the London Law Agency, which is actually registered London Law Agency in brackets, on Companies House, was created in 1967, the year after the Church of Satan was founded in 1966. Okay, so we had Jordans and Sons before it in 1965. 1966 was the Church of Satan and the World Cup, England football, which is linked to Germany, the Church of Satan. Okay, and the same year as the Football World Cup. And then 1967, London Law Agency was incorporated. Now that is now dissolving, that company. And you can go and look at it, London Law Agency in brackets, and it's actually a criminal entity company because the incorporation document has Ganvalon Motors on it. It's never been registered for that record. So it should never, ever have been trading. So again, the illegality and the forgery continues through to that company we're just looking at. Now, within Derwent Films, you can see here we've got Juan Corbella. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. And they are linked to, I've just mentioned it, Ingenious Film Partners. The exact same companies. Here's Ingenious Film Partners 2 and Ingenious Film Partners 3. Ingenious is linked to Hollywood. Okay, and this company, wherever you come in, whether it's be the Hampstead Child Abuse Inquiry, the murder of children on Jersey, whether you come in from Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, Jimmy Savile research links to it, all into the Freemasons, some of the royal family. This company features everywhere, basically, when you come in from every angle. And of course, we all know what's going on in Hollywood at the moment. Okay, we've got the Jeffrey Epstein list and the P. Diddy case and these other things, all where I believe they're trying to conceal the evidence and make it appear as though they're doing something. They're not. They'll be hiding all of the evidence to stop them being implicated or trying to, but it's too late because of all of this. Now, within Derwent Films, David Allen links to, on the right here, Medway Films LLP. Now, I find this quite interesting. Medway is the area where I was born, okay? And I've found, via the research, I mean, there's no coincidence, I've been positioned by our creator to expose this. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind. My dad's adoptive family links to MK Ultra via the research. There's so many things I could tell you. I ended up marrying into a family 3.5 hours away with no connection down there, and the same companies linked to my dad's adoptive family as it does to the family that I married into in Kent. So anyway, that's the Medway area, okay, where I was actually living. So here's Medway Films LLP, and within that company, hopefully you'll recognise this name, is Sacha Baron Cohen. If you don't, we're going to look at him in a minute. And he is linked, you can see on the right here, to Ingenious Film Partners 2 LLP. And here's Sacha. And he was born, according to this research, in 1971. Those of you who follow my evidence will know that that date of birth, or year of birth, comes up a lot through the research, and it's the year of the World Economic Forum. With Klaus Schwab was the chair, and this was created in 1971. And 3 days after I sent my evidence to the World Economic Forum last year, the Klaus Schwab stepped down as the chair for the first time ever since 1971. So he's a movie actor, basically. I've put some of his movie films, titles are quite interesting. But Sacha Baron Cohen was born an English into an English family of Ashkenazi Jewish descent in the Hammersmith area of London in 1971. His mother, photographer Danielle, was born in British Mandatory Palestine in 1939. Okay, everything that's going on in Israel at the moment is all to do with this fraud. Okay, it's all been triggered from the exposure of this fraud because they're panicking. And I suspect they're trying to bring about false biblical events and trying to hide their attacks against humanity and make it appear as though it's natural events or tying into their falsified biblical prophecies. So the mother was born a British Mandatory Palestine in 1939. His father, editor turned clothing store owner Gerald Jerry Baron Cohen, was born into a Belarusian Jewish family in London and grew up in the Welsh town of Pontypridd. Now, all of that is significant. Obviously, Belarus is friends with Putin. Putin's involved in all of this deception. He's involved in this international fraud as well, okay? And, of course, we've got the attack on Ukraine that started in 2022. As I was making inquiries with an Export Manor Freehold Limited, they started their plan against humanity, I suspect and believe. So, and Wales is where the main Companies House office is based that creates the fraudulent criminal entity companies. And the Prince of Wales, now the King, is massively implicated in this. I suspect he's not a real king. I suspect the real heirs have been murdered, and there's evidence coming to light in relation to that. But the fraudulent criminal companies are being created by Companies House. And then when those fraudulent entity companies dissolve, the assets go back to the Crown. So we have a connection to Wales there as well. But also we have his maternal grandmother lived in Haifa and trained as a ballet dancer in Germany before fleeing the Nazis in 1936. So we now have a link to Germany, which I am finding throughout the fraud. On the left, within Medway Film Company, we have Jonathan Bloomer, and he links to Morgan Stanley Bank International. They feature in the fraud, so bank, and also Marsh McLellan India Holdings. Now, Marsh McLellan is linked to the World Trade Center disaster, okay, in my research. And it's linked to the fraud. Here's an example of, look at all the company names they've got. It started in 1911, so it's an old company. And you can see here, it changed its name, which is actually quite relevant, in 1995 to the year 2000. Now, 1995 is the year that the Hakluyt company was started up, that links the intelligence agencies and the Russian government and to UK and America, but also they link to the Flemings and the monarchy, the crown companies. And the Flemings are the ones that removed me or initiated the removal of me as a director from Export Manor Freehold Limited. So I suspect that's quite relevant. And of course, they then changed their name here 2000 before the World Trade Center disaster. And you can see you've got the name Lloyd is added at that point. Okay, now Lloyd's Bank is massive. Well, all banks are involved, but Lloyd's Bank are the documents, forged documents that I acquired from Export Manor Freehold Limited. And that complaint has never been finalised with Lloyd's Bank, even though that's 2 years ago now, a year and a half, 2 years ago. So I find that interesting that the Lloyd name is featured. And it's a criminal fraudulent company, okay, because that, you can see, you've got Pickford, Watson, Hampton, the date 1911 stamped on it, but they've forged the register and put Pickford, Dawson and Holland the same year. Crime, everybody. You've been massively deceived. Now, within Marsh McLellan, just showing some more examples in here, you've got Thomas MacDonald. Now, MacDonald's names are becoming very relevant because I'm making links to, obviously, Scotland with this fraud. It seems very, very important. But also McDonald's restaurants are massively implicated in the artificial intelligence that appears to be coming in as part of this huge satanic attack on humanity. And they're linked to the fraud massively with fraudulent companies as well. And I suspect, unfortunately, they have been doing sinister things with their burgers. And I don't need to spell that out to you, what I mean by that. So here we have Marsh McLellan India Limited. And within the company, you have Amanda Marsh, links to Temple Bar Investment Trust PLC. Temple Bar. Now, those of you who don't know, the bar is another name given to the legal system. The whole legal system is criminal, everybody. Fact, it's fraudulent. You cannot comply with anything now until there is a safeguarded system in place, which is actually very easy to do. The technology is there to safeguard the governance of the nations against crime by making it transparent. I haven't focused on it, but you can see Abbey National Secretariat. Now that is featured in another document, massively part of this, and they connect to the Flemings and JP Morgan when you research them very quickly, and international banks. So here's Temple Bar Investment Trust PLC. And it was started in 1926 and changed its name in 1977. The year I was born. It's interesting. And again, it's a criminal company. And this one's interesting. So you've got Telephone and General Trust. So they've got it here as the Cable Telephone and General Trust Limited. Okay, so they've forged the register again. But now this makes a connection to the threat, which I think is an imminent threat. I still think it's a threat unless the exposure is going to stop it or the humanity stops it, from the radiation being emitted from mobile and communication systems. On another document for the company, you can see Waterloo and Sons again. So everybody, you need to disable this, the masts, the cell towers. And I think you just need to do that by any means necessary now. Just ensure you don't risk harming anybody in doing so. So form groups and remove the masts. You'll lose the mobile communication, but at the end of the day, you have to save your families. And we have a link to Capita, which is featured already in the fraud. It's a big company. Within Marsh on the left, Marsh McLennan, you've got Michael Brown, and they link to the Pensions Advisory Service. Now, because this is linked to or allows them the ability to commit mass genocide without you even knowing, okay, including depopulation events through various criminal means, that means they can cash in on pensions, okay, because that's all those unclaimed pension pots are there. And here we have the Pensions Advisory Service, okay, advising about pensions as part of this very sinister criminal fraud against humanity. You also have same director links to the Chamber of Commerce in France. And looking into it, it's a fraudulent company. It's criminal. Starting in 1936, you see Chambre de Commerce Française de Grande Bretagne Incorporated. Different name. See that? Not only that, it's a criminal fraudulent company because it's got Jordans and Sons Limited on it, which is a fraudulent company. So that means the Chamber of Commerce for France should never have been trading. So, Marsh McLennan, you've got Patrick Gale again. I'm just going back in, okay, looking at the different people within the record and then going into their other companies. So you've got the King's Centre Limited, bearing in mind we're talking about connections to royals. Here we go, the Scottish Equitable PLC. HBOS on the left, which is part of the Lloyds Banking Group. Remember, I acquired forged Lloyds Bank documents. On the right here, the Association of Professional Financial Advisors. Okay, so they need financial advisors as part of this fraud to act as part of the deception. And here we are, the Association of Professional Financial Advisors. Now, I'd already found this company in the fraud. And look, when the director was appointed, literally 2 months almost to the day after the World Trade Center disaster. And then they resigned a couple of years later, because the World Trade Center disaster is massively part of this. So here's the Association of Professional Financial Advisors. We can see it dissolved in 2019, the year of the intervention, if you like, or the outbreak in Wuhan, which is all part of what we're seeing now, everybody. On the bottom of the document, you can see Association of Independent Financial Advisors from 1999, then changed it in 2012, which in itself is quite interesting because that is the year of the apocalyptic deceptions and the year that they supposedly found the Higgs boson or God particle. Now, on the incorporation document, you have Beechcroft Companies, and that's important because Beechcroft links to the very person who removed me or initiated the removal of me from Exmoor Manor Freehold Limited, Deborah Fleming. And the research links Beechcroft LLP to the London Law Agency, again, which is a criminal fraudulent company. It also links Beechcroft Companies to David Cameron, who was the president of Alzheimer's. I suspect Alzheimer's and pretty much all of the health issues that we have been experiencing are all deliberate by these criminals, these satanic criminals against humanity. I suspect they've been causing them all, including cancer, Alzheimer's, all health issues, I believe, are caused deliberately by these people. There's a lot of evidence now suggesting that. So on the right, we have Philip Goodings. And of course, by doing that, what it does is acts as control, but also it means that they can actually monetize through the fraud, through the healthcare system. Okay, so they create the problem. They then say, we've got a solution, but we need more money from you to pay for it. Okay, that's how this generally works. Okay, come back to part 2, because I know it's been half an hour, and we'll look at the rest of the document. Thanks very much. Bye.